I'm curious what life has been like since we last spoken, but did one of the team members tell you to set this call up with me, or did you just wanted to reach out to me on your own?
Yeah, Carlos set it up and said that
Right.
he had spoken to you about um, my wife and I have decided to renew our vows and have an actual wedding now and all that
Wow,
stuff.
Ryan. That that is crazy, man. That is crazy.
Quite the 180 from a year ago.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is beautiful because like I can recall our conversation for the most part, but um let's start here. Let's start here. Like how that all happened, the renewal of the vows, like that just like what led up to that?
Um, I mean, things just steadily got better and better. You know, going back to the beginning, when we first got together, I was dirt poor, never got her an actual wedding ring, and she, when we got married, it was just a courthouse wedding.
Yeah.
And she bought this little, you know, fake diamond ring from a pawn shop or whatever, and she wore that as her wedding ring. And just over the years, I never bought her one. She wore that, and I never put two and two together that she was okay with it, but not okay with it. You know what I mean? And after the process of her wanting a divorce and stuff, I I had tried to buy her a ring, and actually it started. I put money down for one before she asked for a divorce. She didn't know about it, and had bought it for her after she asked, and ended up she wanted to return it or told me to return it and wanted one for, if we stayed together, and wanted one that reminder of a time when things were better. So just occasionally, I asked her if she was ready for a ring yet. And then finally the other night, I asked her again. We had talked, something came up about a ring or something like that. I don't know if it was Lord of the Rings or something. I said, so are you ready for a ring yet? And she thought for a second, said, yeah, let's go ahead and pick out a ring. And I said, all right, well, on one condition, we actually have a wedding this time instead of a courthouse. And we have an actual honeymoon. And she said, yeah, that'd be great. So I know she was excited about having an actual wedding and an actual honeymoon. So
Wow, that's so cool. And I mean, has it been more than a year since we had that conversation, our last conversation?
I think it's been right at a year,
Yeah.
or actually maybe a little bit more, because I think it was right before she and I went to St. Thomas, because you gave me some tips on what to do while we were in St. Thomas, and we went beginning of May was when we went. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's been a little bit more than a year.
So what's been like, what have you been doing that has been led to the continual growth of your marriage?
Um, I mean, just a lot of it is just actually being there when we spend that time together. You know, a lot of I now understand her love language, and all the time I worked a lot, and when I was home, I even though I was there, I wasn't there. And that's what ultimately kind of pushed her away and made her seek out somebody else, or fall into somebody else's trap, so to speak. Um, so just being there when I was home, spending time with her, and actually, um, just acknowledging her and talking to her and doing stuff with her. And one thing she said last night, I asked her, do you want to go out on a date or something this weekend? And she's like, I'm not really big on dates and dinner and a movie and stuff like that. That stuff is kind of boring.
Hmm.
I said, well, what would you like to do then? You want to do like horseback riding or go to the zoo, or what do you want to do? And she said, what makes me the happiest is going out and going shopping. And she said, one of the biggest things that I've noticed about you is that when you and I go shopping now, you don't complain. So normally in the past, when we go shopping together, after 5 minutes, you were a dick. and, and now, we go shopping, you're not an asshole anymore. You stay quiet, you help me pick stuff out, and we have a great time. And that, she said, that to me is better than a date. So
Wow. Yeah, I recently read in one of Gottman's books about the shopping thing, how like the guy we like when we shop, it's like we're hunting. This is what I want. I'm
Hmm.
gonna get the thing and I'm gonna get it, right? Where a woman, it's like they're in the berry field picking berries, like, oh, what look at this thing and look at that thing, right? So it's like a very big disconnect in like the genders. But yeah, your ability to go along with her with something she wants is yeah, she says she feels appreciative of that, obviously.
Yep. Yeah. And one of the other big things too is just she said our communication now, understanding each other. We're speaking, not necessarily speaking the same language all the time, but understanding that men and women speak different languages most of the time,
Right.
and that there is that barrier there. And men kind of speak. I like to put it, men speak English and German, and women speak French and German, and sometimes, English is our primary language, German is our secondary, and women is French is their primary, German is their secondary, and occasionally you have to switch, both have to switch to that German to understand each other. So,
That's
um,
a really good analogy, Ryan. I like that a lot. I never heard of that one before. Yeah, it's so true because there's like we hear the same words, but there's something clearly different being communicated here, right? Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, for
yeah, and sometimes it's like if you don't get what the other, and you can tell when the other person doesn't get what you're saying, and sometimes you have to say, "Hey, I'm bringing up the trans, drawing you a picture. What I say is what I mean.
sure. Right.
Sky is blue, grass is green. This is what I mean." So it's we've both worked on that aspect too, and that's helped quite a bit too. You know,
That's wonderful. That's wonderful, man. So good. So besides the understanding her language, right? I'm gonna go back to the original video after this. I'm gonna wonder if you're gonna say the same things. Doesn't matter if you remember it or not, but like what was one of the other key habits that you've developed or insights in the course that has allowed you to like continue on this path?
um, I would uh, consistency. I think
Yeah.
um, doing doing what I say I'm going to do, regardless. You know, like I said before, I worked 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, a lot of times. And one of the things, I think the first CLT I did, I told her, I said, I'm making it a rule that you know at I'm finishing my day at 4 p.m. and cleaning up and leaving the job site at 4:30. I said the only exception is I'm a contractor, so I drive all over the place, sometimes up to 90 miles. The only exception is, if the job is more than an hour away, I'll work an extra half hour because, the expenses add up. So that way I'm home every day by 6 p.m., 6:30 at the latest.
Mm.
And we've got 4 hours a day dedicated to each other,
Wow.
and I'm not getting home at 9, 10 o'clock at night and then going straight to bed and then up before you're up in the morning, and we
Yeah.
actually get to see each other. And so, and I've there's been a couple emergencies. We have rental properties, so there's been emergencies with that where I've had to break that, but she understands that. There's nothing you can do about that. But other than that, I've held true to that. The consistency in that is, I think, been. I know she's noticed that. So
Yeah. And the amount of time is important, but also the when you're there with her, right? Like, like I say all the time, like she'd rather have 60 minutes of undivided attention. Like, how was your day? You're holding her hand, like, laughing with her, flirting with her, versus like 4 hours, like, okay, I'm home now, but you're scattered, right? You're thinking of things you're gonna do tomorrow. Like that conscious time is also important, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's her. Like it's actually it's her. That is her love language, is the time spent. So that's um, she's trying keeps trying to tell me that the physical touch is her time, is her love language, and I'm like, after taking the quiz for her, it's like, no, I think it's the time that I'm spending to do the physical touch is what you're actually. I think the physical
Yeah.
touch is like a close second maybe, but I
Right.
think the time I'm spending to do it is what you're actually appreciating. So
Yeah.
and
Well, that
so
goes down to love languages, right? Because different people have different love languages when it comes to that. And
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Um, Since you're, a veteran right now, Ryan, in the program, let's see how you answer these questions in terms of like what a lot of guys are struggling with. If a guy is like losing hope, right? He's looking for wins, but he's not finding any, and he considers himself to be in a hopeless situation. What would be, and I'm sure you've had these points across your journey where you felt like low motivation, low hope. What is something that would keep you going, or advice you would give a guy to keep going in that scenario?
Well, the first thing I tell people is there's no such thing as a loss. I mean, there's wins and then there's learning experiences, and then every time you learn something, you're winning. So everything is a win. So you gotta there's positive in everything, no matter what it is. Even if it makes you feel bad, you're still winning. So um, look at the bright side. Even if it hurts now, it's gonna make you feel better later. Um, so just look for the bright side and everything. Just you have to sometimes you have to look for it harder than other situations, but it's always there.
Yeah. What would you say is one of your personal, like, whether it was a limiting belief or just an internal struggle that you overcame that like led to a lot of like success in your journey?
Oh well, um, probably just overcoming my my own guilt and my own shame and those barriers that I had for myself
Right.
since I was a kid. You know, I had those issues from when I was bullied as a kid, where I didn't have anybody to turn to. Nobody taught me how to deal with emotions or anything, so I just completely shut them off. And anytime I started having those emotions, I just put up a wall. And
Mm.
I had always hid and never faced those fears. And now I've, I've I'm still learning, but instead of hiding from them, I'm dealing with them. So yeah, that's the biggest thing for me.
Right. Because you'll see so many guys, and I think this is only really apparent to the men who actually join the program and they see the truth behind like how impactful this is. But like the idea of self-sabotage, right? Where you'll see guys, they're like, I know the post, I know it's coming even the first sentence because it's like, man, I've been having so many wins lately, and like I know where this is going. And then just the other day, I said this thing, or I text her this, or I went through her phone, or something. It's like something they do to just self-sabotage, and like where that always comes from is this like shame, guilt, like subconscious, like I don't deserve her, and
Yeah,
this is why I'm actually doing this, and it's hidden to a lot of guys until it becomes apparent, right? So it's important to point
yeah,
that out.
yeah. Well, if you're doing that stuff and you're looking for that stuff, then you don't deserve her. You know, I mean,
Oh
that's the
wow,
stuff that
that was good. That was good. Can you
that's
elaborate?
the.
Yeah, elaborate on that.
I mean, that's what makes it so you don't deserve her. I mean, if you don't trust her, then I mean, that's what makes it so you don't. I mean,
Yeah,
there's nothing there if there's no trust. So that's what it's. I think you said it before. If you're looking for trouble, you're gonna find it.
yeah.
So
How important for you, like the idea of every action, every criticism she has, or every time she's upset, putting it through the lens of like, oh, I'm making her not feel emotionally safe right now or reassured. Are you able to see that pattern in her tests or criticisms or whenever time she gets upset?
yeah, yeah, and I actually take that as a good thing now. You know, when she does criticize and test, because I know now that that means she cares, and that means she's she's trying to show me something and tell me something, and it's just in a different way. So I smile on the inside when she does it. So and then when she snaps at me and stuff, and I just tell her, it's cute when you're angry at me, or cute you're cute when you're feisty, or whatever. So that's it's one of the tricks I learned. I think it was from uh, was it the masculine relationship.
By
That
J.S.
was one of the
Youngblood? Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, yeah. It's taking her because in her like we talk about frame a lot, right? It's like
yeah,
she has her frame and like this is a big deal, right? And then your frame is like, well, it's not. You know what I mean? Or like I love you, or like your criticism. I see behind all that anger that you're just like a scared little girl that just wants love, and so I'm gonna use humor and completely dispel that. And right, it's such an advanced skill to master, but once you get it down, it's like you see like the truth behind the veil, right?
yeah,
Yeah, man.
yeah.
What about leading in relationship? Have you found more ways to lead more, make effective decisions, like take that masculine role?
Yeah, I quit asking her what she wants to do so much now. I tell her what I want to do, and then ask her opinion on if on stuff instead. That way, you know, I it shows her that I value her opinion as well. But this is how I think we should do it. Um, it and that way, well, yeah, it's like that. I'm just taking charge more and just leading more rather than in the past. I was always like, if she asked what we want or what I wanted to do, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. Whatever you want to do, I don't care. And now I always give an opinion. Even if I don't care, I still give an opinion anyway.
Hmm.
Just just so there's something there. So
Yeah,
um,
yeah, yeah. It's so easy to just kind of fall into that complacency, right? Because I like taking it from like almost like a biological perspective where making decisions, it burns calories, right? Like
yeah,
it burns energy. And if you, as a guy, you just want like, I want to rest. I don't know. This really isn't a big deal to me. But for her, like if you start to really understand your wife, or woman in general, it's like she needs that guidance, right? Like she can make her own decision, but give her that guidance, right? Like so knowing that balance it makes her, and it goes back to that safety piece, right? She can trust you, like, oh, and just in case I have no idea what's going on, he will be the one to guide us. That's what she needs from you. So
yeah, yeah. And there's other little stuff all the time. She reminds me to take charge now and lead. I'm going to follow you now, or I'm going to do this. Do this, or I'm going to take charge and lead. She does it for me now and reminds me to do it. So, like we play. I don't know how familiar you are with PlayStation games and stuff, but we play Diablo 4 together,
okay, I
and
know. Yeah, I played StarCraft growing up, so
yeah.
I played, yeah.
So, and there's we play dungeons and stuff together, and she's always like, "All right, you lead, I'm just gonna follow you. And if I start running in circles or whatever, she's like, you better lead, or I'm just gonna run off on my own. And so, so
Yeah.
it's, I mean, even little stuff like that. It's like I'm taking charge. I'm leading her through these dungeons, and you know what I mean. So
It's funny you say that too, because in that same book I was talking about, they give an example of they did an experiment where they were observing children playing games, and even from like early childhood, like 6 to 7 years old, the boys in the experiment they were playing like I don't know what they call it, like pass ball or whatever, and like one guy would have the ball and like everyone else would chase him, whoever touches him gets the ball, right? And for the boys when there's conflict, like one boy started crying, the leader of the group was like, "Hey, why are you crying?" He's like, "I didn't get the ball." He's like, "Okay, here's the ball," and like solve the problem. Let's continue the fun, right? Let's continue the objective. For the woman, they would like they'll do like a complete social game where it's like it's not about the objective, it's not about the thing, right? It's like the reason they're doing the activity is to bond with you, right? So
yeah,
when there's an issue, it's like the whole premise of the game doesn't matter anymore. Let's just talk about the issue now. Like, oh, it's okay, Becky. No, no, I'm gonna go to your birthday party. Yeah, I love. So it's like when you see this, it's really cool when you see this with like any game. It's you'll see the majority of the women are not focused on the actual game. They're talking about other things. So in an intergender game, it's important as a guy to be like you got to kind of rein her back in a lot of times because she'll want to talk about other things, right? Other than
yeah,
the game. So yeah, I just thought that was
yeah,
funny.
yeah. I love it when she does. Just if she starts. there's so many things where it's like a yes or no answer, but you get a 5 minute answer anyway, and it's like,
Right.
hey, she's getting it out, just let her go.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome, man. So I guess like as we wrap up here, Ryan, I'm kind of curious. I know I asked you a question similar, but what is like you've been doing this for a while and you've had good results and you followed the program, and I'm so proud of you, really am. And if you had to give a piece of advice to another guy that's like first starting the program, which I think you do comment on guys' posts, right? And
Yeah,
help a guy out. Actually, let me actually switch that around then. What do you think, besides the self-sabotage, what's one more key area that you think really holds guys back towards their own success?
a lot of it, um, is, I think, is the affair stuff, is getting over the affair, partners, and and I think the biggest challenge, I think, is the ownership of who's actually to blame for her having the affair in the first place. Yeah,
Mm,
she's doing something wrong, but why is she doing something wrong? It's the why. Why was she talking to him in the first place? I mean, that you played a part in that as well. And luckily I grasped that right away. I think that to me was the biggest key thing that helped me get through her affair and the pregnancy that she had, you know, from the affair, was um, knowing that, had I been a good enough husband in the first place and been there for her when she needed me, she never would have talked to that other guy to begin with. And so she never would have gone on that trip. She never would have met up with that guy. She never would have gotten pregnant. So, you know, most of the blame fell on me. So there was later on, there was a video that I watched, and he said, everything that happens to you in your life is your fault. In one way or another, it's your fault, because everything that you've done puts you in the situation that you're in. So everything is your fault. So once you own that, until you own that, you're never going to be free. And once you do, that's when you're free. And I realized that. So that it's not necessarily, being at fault isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just taking ownership. That's the key. So
wow. Yeah, I've been playing with that idea a lot, man. And I preach that, obviously, taking extreme accountability. And it's all perception, right? Like you can't prove one way or another, but like when it comes to your happiness, I mean, studies will even back this up, that when you take that perspective, like you tend to be happier because you have more control over your environment, or otherwise you're like, things happen to me, I'm a victim, right? So, but like I even get on calls with guys sometimes who are finding success, getting their wives back and stuff, and they even take it further than me. And it sounds like the way you talk about it, you probably even do more than me, where it's like one of the guys, Ryan, he was like, I remember who this was. He goes, his wife came to him and was like, "Hey, I'm sorry for this, this, and this." And so she took responsibility. In that moment, he goes, "No, that was on me." And like even when his wife came to him taking responsibility, he's like, "No, that's me. That's why that happened." I was like, "Damn, like that's growth, right? That's like getting your own ego out of the way." And that's what I think, going down to it, like it comes down to ego. Like I'm this guy, and I'm not a bad person. And it's like, you're not a bad person, but just because you did these things to your wife that led to this thing doesn't mean you're a bad person. I think a lot of people take that as like, if I admit I did this, then I'm a bad person. It's like, it's not doesn't mean you're a bad person. It means you made a mistake and you're going to learn from it, you know?
yeah, yeah. My wife and I actually got into an argument about whose fault it was. we were, I was like, it's my fault you were there, and she's like, well, you didn't put his dick in me, and I was like, yeah, but I'm the one that told you to go. So it's I'm the one that pushed you away. So it's I'm taking ownership. It was my fault, and that was another thing too that she had a big problem with, was I was always defensive. I never took ownership of anything. I said, I'm finally freaking owning up to it, and now you're arguing with me about it. So just deal with it. Let me take ownership, and it was my fault.
Wow. Well said. Well said. Awesome. I mean, I really appreciate you getting on the call with me again and give me an update. I'm always curious, like, guys I've talked to where they're at. And so, yeah, man, just thank you so much. And for just being an active member in the community as well and sharing your story with so many other guys. This has been great. Really appreciate it.